Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm in my office area right now, and you'll notice a few things have kind of changed. My wife, for one, sold her desk over that used to be over in that corner, just so that I could have more space to work, since she's usually out in the kitchen anyways. So that was awfully nice of her. Now I have a little more space to work on all my games in here. And the other thing is that you'll notice all of the metal parts, the frame, everything from the red tent that's metal is gone, and that's because I found a nice powder coating shop nearby and have dropped all my parts off there. And let me tell you, I am super excited. It is just such a relief to let them deal with all that stuff. You know, normally I would handle all of the prep work, the sanding, the stripping, the priming, the painting, but with something like this where you have a ton of metal parts and they're all these weird shapes and sizes, and there is a lot of little parts. Just the thought of prepping all of those and stripping them down is grueling. And so I am more than happy to pay a pro to just handle all that stuff. It's a huge relief. And the price is actually very reasonable. I sent out, I don't know, probably 20 different emails for quotes to all of these different shops. And in the Twin Cities area here, there's a gazillion different powder coating shops, and prices range all over the place. Anywhere from $200 to $300 for everything, all the way up to $1,000. It's just ridiculous the difference in prices that all these shops quote you. But they're gonna handle. It's just kind of nice. They're a one-stop shop, so they handle all the prep work. They'll sandblast everything, and then they'll powder coat it. And the benefit to having it powder coated is that it's much more durable than your average paint job. It's more weather resistant. It's less abrasive. It doesn't chip or scratch as easy. So there's really nothing but benefits to having it powder coated. So anyways, that's where I'm at with those parts. I'm hoping to get a call from them within the next week or so. So hopefully I can pick up those parts and have those back. But in the meantime, while I'm waiting for those parts to get done, I've got actually quite a few little tasks I want to get completed. There's lots of little projects I got to get done before I can assemble this whole thing while I'm waiting for those parts to get done. But before we get into that, I thought it'd be kind of fun to just cover all of the parts that were originally missing from this red tent that I needed to obtain to make it complete. Now that I have basically everything that I need to get this project done, I thought it'd be kind of fun to just cover what was missing and what I needed to obtain in order to make this complete. So let me go grab a tripod and we'll go over that. Okay, so everything that you see on this table basically was missing from my red tent when I got it. And there's a ton of parts. I think I'll just start over here. But to begin, this is the PCB holder. This basically holds the game board in the cabinet. It mounts in, if you're looking at the cabinet with the lid up, it'd be about like this, and then the PCB would just slide right in here. So that was missing, and I'm not sure what's up with this extra spray paint, it's blue and red. I'll probably just maybe throw a coat of gray over that just because it looks ugly, but PCB holder was missing. And then, if you remember the video that where me and Scott tore down the red tent, there are two of these leg brackets that basically hold the legs in place. And this is one of the two that originally came with it, and it was just beat to hell. Both of these tabs were bent flat. Someone had just pounded them down and made a cut right here. And we tried straining them, but it just wasn't working. It was just easier to find another one of these leg brackets. So actually, Andrew, also known as 34K, hooked me up with one of these, and it's actually at the powder coating shop right now. And he also hooked me up with, these are service switches, and both of these guys mount on top of the coin buckets. And basically they're credit switches, more or less. But both of these were missing. So Andrew was nice enough to hook me up with both of these and this leg bracket, as kind of a Christmas gift, and he even sent me some little chocolates and holiday treats. So, Andrew, I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, buddy. Then, aside from those, now these are the two joysticks that came with the Red Tent when I got it, and they are original Nintendo joysticks. They have a lot of rust. They need to be cleaned up, but there were two there. But unfortunately, I don't know if you can see this, but unfortunately, I was missing two more of these. Since there's two joysticks per side, I needed a total of four. So I need to find two more of these, and I've got two. They're not out here right now, but they were restored by another forum member, and I got them for a pretty decent price. I think I got them from NFL Patriots is his name on the forums. But so I needed two of those, and I've actually got a fifth one right here that was given to me as kind of a gift. And that one I'm probably just going to hang on to as a spare, as an extra one. I'll restore all three of these anyways, but it'll be nice to have a spare. And let's see here. Moving on over here. So these guys here are basically the monitor bezels. They're a cardboard bezel, and it surrounds basically the glass. Oops, there, you can see that. So basically, this mounts on the glass of the monitor, and it's held in by a bracket that also holds the glass in place, and that goes on top of the monitor. So basically, this just surrounds the monitor so you don't see the inside of the cabinet. It's kind of like a shroud. But both of these cardboard bezels were missing, and I found a guy actually that lives right down the street from me. He had a couple of these that he sold me for pretty cheap, so those were missing. You'll remember also from the video where we tore down the Red Tent that the original control panels that were in there were hacked up because this Red Tent that I got was converted to a Neo Geo. So whoever owned it previously drilled some extra holes and really hacked up the metal panels. Now, yes, I could patch those up, but it would be kind of a real pain in the butt, especially with how close those button holes were to the other holes. So it was just easier to find a couple of these unhacked original metal panels, and they are fairly available. So I've got two of those. This is actually a third one, and you can see it's like super, super rusty. So the other two are at the powder coating shop right now, which is why I still have this one, because those other two are in much better shape. So got a couple of those, and let's see. And then with that, I also needed the CPOs, the control panel overlays. These are, I think they're an aluminum, but they're a metal plate that basically sits over the control panel. And I've got some here that are really ugly. I actually have 6 of them because these are actually fairly easy to find, but finding ones that are in really good shape is a whole nother story. So these two are really gross. I don't think I'm going to be using them. I've basically been using these to test cleaning methods on. So they're good for that. And then I've got the other 4 in here. And one of these 4 is almost flawless. It's in really good shape. And then there's another 2 that are really close. And then the 4th one is just okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up all of them and polish them up, and then decide which 2 are the best candidates for the Red Tent. I'll kind of cherry pick. So it's kind of nice to have that option. And then, oh yeah, so I was also missing the original wiring. Since this was converted to a Neo Geo, that uses a different wiring harness, a JAMA harness. And so the original wiring harness was missing completely. Excuse me. And, you know, like I said before, I could build my own wiring harness. It's not entirely complicated. These edge connectors are available, you know, wires, all of the Molex connectors. You can find them. But, this harness was, I think, like $50. If I was to build this one myself, it would probably take me hours because there's so much wiring. Essentially, this is 2 wiring harnesses in one, because if you think about it, there are 2 games, there's 2 monitors, 2 sets of controls. It's basically 2 games worth of wiring. And yes, I could invest the time and make that, but there's also more room for error in that. And also, the benefit to buying an original wiring harness is that you can go online, look at the manual for this game, and see the pinouts, the color codings for all these wires. And since it's original, it's really easy to tell and look up where each of these connectors and wires go and what they control. And so in the long scheme of things, it's really going to save me a lot of time. So I ended up buying this, I think for like I said, like $50. Totally worth it. It's going to save me a lot of headaches and time and tedious work that I really don't want to deal with. One of the lids with the coin, one of the sides was missing 2 of the coin mechs. So these are like $5. They're really cheap. I just, you don't need anything fancy. They just take these, I think they're Inamex, something like that. So a couple of coin mechs, so I have 4 working ones. Since this game, most of the games for the Red Tent don't have good free play modes, I'm probably going to leave it on quarters and just kind of use it as a piggy bank. Because I don't want to have to lift the lid every time and hit the service switch. And like I said, the free play options on a lot of these games are terrible. So it's good to have working coin mechs. And then probably the thing that I spent the most time hunting down, were the original buttons. And yeah, I've got them in a bag. I'll have them out later, but I don't think you can probably see very well. But these are all original Nintendo buttons. Now, the reason why this took me so long to find is that these Nintendo buttons, they're unique. They have a different diameter. They have a different feel. They're slightly different shapes than your conventional standard buttons. And since they're not reproduced, they're a lot harder to find. They're a lot more sought after. And they also go for a lot more money. So it took me a long time to hunt down and find all these, because aside from not being reproduced, they also have unique colors, and especially ones like there's a couple of purple buttons, the blues, the yellows, and the greens. Those are a lot more difficult to find. So it took me a long time to find these. And I actually ended up with quite a few extra buttons than I needed. And the reason for that is that a lot of these sellers on the forums, they'll sell buttons like, say, anywhere from like 5 to 12 buttons, or even like 3 or 4, and they don't want to split them up. It's just kind of, you have to buy the whole lot, even if I only need 1 button. So in the long scheme of things, I ended up with quite a few extra buttons. So I'm going to end up restoring all of them, probably polish them up, try to bring the color back, clean them up. And I may hang on to a few, but I'll probably also sell a bunch. So it's kind of funny, for the longest time, I was looking for, X amount of buttons or this or that button, and now I actually have more than I need. So it's kind of ironic. And then these are actually all of the button holders that hold those buttons. These are the metal brackets that the button sits in and mounts to the control panel. And there's also the brackets that hold the micro switch. And this bag has the button spacers, the wing nuts, and the PAL nuts, and the micro switches. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff missing, but it's also a lot of fun to hunt down all this stuff and just kind of bring it all together and put this game back to the way it should be. Now, I'm going to be straightforward. This is definitely going to be costing me more than it would be just to buy a complete working Red Tent. There's no doubt about it. A Red Tent around here goes typically, I would say, between $350 and $500. I think I've seen them. This one's probably going to cost me, I don't know, $700 or $800 when everything's said and done. After I've sold some extra parts and stuff, I would guess between $700 and $800. So yeah, it is going to cost me a bit more. And I'm okay with that. There's been, several projects that I've had where I've ended up putting more money into it than it would be just to buy a complete machine. But with that being said, that's a restored game. It looks, close to new. It's been completely worked over. It's something I'm proud of, and it's something I'm going to keep in my collection. And that kind of brings up a good point. When you're talking about prices of games, there's really a lot of times two or three prices. You've got the price of just a working game, you got a price of a restored game, and you've got a price of a non-working game. And that's why it's really tough to discuss prices, because if you say, okay, well, this game's $800, people say, yeah, but I can buy one for $300. Well, what's the condition of it? Has it been restored? Where are you buying it? So lots of stuff to think about there. But getting back to this, putting these games back together and bringing them back to life, that's half the fun, if not more than half the fun for me. So totally worth it. And, part of that cost that's going into this is obviously towards having all the parts powder coated and sandblasted. So that's something that I normally don't do. It's that's a first time thing for me, but I'm really happy I'm doing it, because that's just going to save me so much time. And of course, there's a price to time. Time is money, as they say. Anyways, enough talking. I'm going to clean this off so that we can start working on some of these other little projects. So let me just get everything all set up and we'll get started. Okay, before we move on, I totally forgot about a few parts that I was originally missing. I talked about everything that was missing originally when I got the red tent, but I totally forgot about a few of the other parts. And one of them is the locks that are used. And these are the Takigen, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Takigen. It's Takigen. It's a Japanese manufacturing company. And these are the original locks that they used for the top covers. Now, these aren't very common. In fact, they go for a fair amount of money, like everything else with this red tent. But I was able to find a couple on KLOV forums and also a couple on eBay that I got new old stock for a very cheap price. I got lucky, I sniped it. But I've got all four of the original locks, and instead of, most of the cam locks use, most of the locks on these games use, a standard cam, just a flat metal bar that locks into place. But with these red tents, they use these hooks, and these are what keep the lids locked down, basically, the top covers. So I also had to find these, and Small Town Guy 2 on KLOV has a bunch of these that he reproduced. So luckily I was able to get some of those from him. I still need one more, but for the most part I've got everything I need here, and also got the keys. This guy right here, it's black. This one was painted black, so I need to take that black paint off. But this one was actually on one of the coin buckets, and I think originally all of the locks, there would be 7 total, use the same lock, but really it's just the 4 on the top covers that I'm concerned with, because to my knowledge you can use just a standard cam lock with the flat cam on the coin boxes, as well as the power supply access door. So anyways, I was missing all 4 of those. I've got those now. And the other thing, believe it or not, I was missing the serial number, the Nintendo serial plate. And so I just went online and found one of these. I think this was like $5 or $10, which is really funny. I know that they converted these things to Neo Geos, but why would they remove the serial plate? Like, what's the big deal about that? It just seems silly. But I was missing that, so I picked up one of these as well, because you got to have a serial plate. So anyways, that's it. That should cover everything that I was originally missing. Now let's move on. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to work on these buttons. I want to get them restored. And the first step with that is going to be just to simply clean them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use probably like, oh, I don't know, like a grease lightning or a simple green, kind of a mixture of a degreaser cleaner product on all these buttons, just to get them clean before I start doing any real polishing or restoration of sorts. So the first step to that, though, is I've got to take these things apart, because right now they're all held together by an E-clip. There's a PAL nut on a lot of these, and I want to separate them so I get the plunger by itself and also the other piece of the button. I don't even know what you would call this, the base. So, because those are the only plastic parts. The rest of these are, there's just a couple of metal parts. There's actually a spring inside. So the first step is going to be just to take these apart so I can get just the plastic pieces by themselves. So, got the PAL nut here. I'm actually just going to grab a bag so I can throw all these metal parts in. And I may clean these metal pieces too. I haven't decided yet. You're not really going to see these, but if I'm going the extra step with cleaning these buttons, I probably should clean those too. And then there's this E-clip that's holding the plunger in place. And to get that off, actually, I'm going to grab, sometimes I'll use a needle nose pliers, and other times I'll use a really tiny flathead screwdriver. And what I can do is, with this tiny little flathead screwdriver, I can start to pry this out, and then once it's out a ways, I can pull it off with the needle nose pliers. And the reason for doing it this way, at least for me, is that it's a little bit more careful, a little gentler, because since these buttons, like we were talking about, they're not being reproduced anymore. And so if I just, brute forcefully pull this E-clip off, there is a chance that you can bust this little piece of plastic off, and then you're kind of screwed, because this E-clip will have nothing to grab onto and the plunger won't stay in place. So I'm just going to work this out, and then I'll grab my needle nose pliers here. Come on. Oh, looks like I need a little more leverage here. That's pretty good. It's almost off. I am being a little more careful. There we go. Okay. So I got the E-clip off. I'm going to throw that in my little bag over here, because I don't want to lose any of these parts. Even the spring, you can see here. Well, maybe you can't see. It's pretty tough to tell. But even the springs, let's see if you can. The springs themselves are different than a standard button spring as well. And there's a certain amount of pressure. I'll just. Or hopefully you can see that. The springs they're a little bit, there's not as many coils as a normal button, and it's hard to describe, but the pressure is a little bit different. It's a little bit, there's a little more tension, and so the button isn't as loose. There's more resistance. So even these springs are very important that they hang on to. So I don't want to lose this either. So I'm going to throw this into my little bag here. Make sure I don't lose any of those parts. All right. Okay, so here's the two pieces. I've got, I'm just going to call this the base. I'm sure there's a proper name for that. I just can't think of it right now. And then this is the plunger. So I'm going to throw these into my little, what would you call this? those into my little Tupperware there. And then once I have all the buns there, I'm going to fill that up with some cleaning solution. So I'm going to go ahead and take apart all of these buns. So I'll probably just speed this up. It's just going to get a little monotonous and repetitive. So let me just take all these apart and I'll come right back. Okay, so I've got all the buns broken down into their individual pieces. Here's all the plastic that I want to clean. Now there are a few extra buns you'll see up here. These guys have actually, these three right here, have been cleaned and polished already, so I don't really need to mess with those. And then these three that are in this little bag here are actually new old stock buttons. So there's no point in really cleaning these, but I think I might throw some polish on them, but that's it. I don't really need to touch these. These are new old stock, so it doesn't get much better than that. So anyways, got all my buns here. Now I'm going to throw some sort of cleaner in these and let them sit. I've got a few options here. Lots of products that I'm almost all out of, so I'll probably just mix them all together. But I've got some 409 here I think I'll throw in there. Oops. And I've done this before with buns. It works pretty good. I usually let them sit in the solution for several hours. So that's gone. I need to get more 409, it looks like. And let's also put this, I like this stuff. This is Grease Lightning. It's not very expensive, but it's, you know, just your cleaner degreaser. Kind of like a simple green almost. But I think this stuff's actually even cheaper. So I'm just going to pour, I'll probably just pour the rest of this. There's not a whole lot left. I just want to get these buns submerged entirely. And I might throw a little bit of simple green. I don't want to empty this whole bottle in there because I do need this stuff for other parts. Granted, you know, it's only a few bucks. But I think what I'll do is I'll just put a little bit of this in there. That's probably good. And then I'm just going to put some hot soapy water in there just to fill the rest of it, the remaining amount of it up. So I'll do that off camera. I'll be right back. Okay, so all I did was filled up the rest of this container with some hot soapy water just to get the buns entirely submerged in this cleaning solution. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to seal this up and put this in a safe spot and let them sit. You know, usually I let them sit for a few hours all the way to overnight. I might do that here since there's so many buttons, and just to ensure that they're clean enough. So while that's sitting, we can work on some other things. So I'm going to go move this out of the way, put it in a safe spot, and I'll be right back. Okay, well, since those buttons are sitting and cleaning themselves, I also want to clean the metal parts for the buttons. You know, these are the metal button holders. Basically, the button sits in the top here, and this gets mounted to the control panel. And these guys can get pretty rusty too. This one's not too bad, but I've got a bunch in here. Some of them are really bad, like this guy here. So I want to get these free, you know, clean of rust as well. And I also want to clean all of the other metal parts, the PAL nuts, I don't think I'm going to clean the springs, but the E-clips, and also there's all the micro switches for the buttons. Let me grab a couple here. And the contacts for these get a little rusty as well. And if these get rusty, you're not going to make a good connection with your wiring, and so you might get dropped inputs. The button may not even register. So it's a good idea to clean those tabs as well. So what I'm going to do is, just like before with those chrome legs, I'm going to use more of this Metal Rescue. This stuff worked fantastic before. And it's very simple. It's just like kind of what we did with those buttons. You basically just throw all of your... Oh, there goes my phone. Anyways, so you just throw a bunch of that solution in here, drop all your metal pieces in there, and what it does is it just eats away all of the rust without affecting anything else. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to throw all of these holders, all of these little metal pieces into a big container. Actually, I might need something bigger than this. I'm not sure yet. But I'm going to throw them all in there, let them soak in this Metal Rescue, and then give it about a day or so. And that should eat away all of this rust without me having to sand and scrape all of that crud off of there, which is a pain in the butt. I think I'm also going to throw these joystick mounting plates in there as well, these assemblies. I do plan on restoring these joysticks. I'll probably do that in another video, but since I'm going to be cleaning the rust off all these other parts, it'd probably be a good time to throw these in there as well. So that's what I'm going to do. I think I am going to have to get a bigger container. So why don't I do that, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I grabbed another one of these long green containers. Should be enough, I think, to hold all this stuff. So I'm just going to move that over here. And I want to take apart these joysticks real quick. Basically, there's just, you got your 4 micro switches down here, as well as the restrictor plate and an E-clip. So not a whole lot to these. All right, I'm just going to take these screws off. Actually, I'm going to start with these micro switches. Get those out of the way. And the nice thing about that Metal Rescue is, like I said, it doesn't affect anything else, including plastic. So I should just be able to throw these micro switches in that solution, and it'll only eat away the rust on these contacts. It won't harm this plastic, which is super convenient. Gotta remember to keep all of these screws together so I don't lose those. As well as these guys here that hold the micro switches in place. All right. Not a whole lot to these, which is very nice. Makes it real easy to put these guys back together. All right, so now we've got, these 4 screws for this restrictor plate here. And I might need to get a different Phillips. Mine's a little bit too large for the size of these screws. Let's see if this one works. Really don't want to strip these screws. Wow. Yeah, this one looks like it's already been stripped a little bit. All right. Yeah. All right, I might need to go grab a different tool. I'll be right back. Okay, so get this. These little screws, the 2 that I was having trouble with, were so stripped that even my impact driver couldn't budge them. So I ended up just taking a power drill and drilling the screws out since they're pretty tiny. They came out relatively easy, but what a pain. I'll have to get some new screws for this. So anyways, I'm just gonna, I got a bunch of metal shavings everywhere from drilling that sucker out, but should be relatively easy now. Yeah, there's the restrictor plate. And then should be able to get this guy off. There's a little E-clip here. There it is. Whoa. Okay. We got our spacer. Spring. Boy, is this thing gummy. Ugh. In desperate need of a restore. Okay, and then there's a couple more parts in here. There we go. I think that's it. I don't know, does this guy come out? There's a little, almost like a gimbal in here. I think that stays in there. At least I can't figure out a way to get it out if it does come out. Let's see here. Yeah, I think that's made to stay in there. All right, so that's one down. Hopefully the next one goes a little bit easier, or like next two. You don't need to, I won't make you watch that. Let me just get those two taken apart and we'll move on. Okay, well, I got all of the joysticks taken apart, and what I want to do now is start cleaning the pieces to the joysticks. Now, obviously, I'm going to be throwing the plates in the Metal Rescue with the rest of the other metal parts that I want to clean the rust off, but the joystick parts, you know, like these shafts, the springs, all of the little parts to them have well, I think it's the original lubricant on there. They're really gunked up, slimy and oily, and I'm going to be relubing them anyways. So I want to get that off there. And although I'm not planning on restoring these joysticks in this video, these have to sit for a while. So it's a good time to do that since I have them apart. And what I'm going to do is, everyone's got their own method of cleaning these parts. And I've actually found that brake clean works amazingly well for stuff like this, especially for getting old oil and lubricants off. And I discovered that having these parts actually soak in brake clean works remarkably well. I discovered it while I was rebuilding my Marble Madness trackballs. I needed to clean the old oil off the bearings, and brake clean worked well. And what I would do is just fill up a little tiny container with some brake clean, cover them up, and let that sit for, for a few hours. And it just works tremendously well. You don't have to do a ton of scrubbing. It just kind of dissolves all of that old lubricant and gunk off. So that's what I'm going to do here. I found the smallest container I could find for these parts, so I don't have to waste any more brake clean than I need to. So I'm just going to spray in here and just kind of fill up this container. And I can already see, I don't know how well you can see this, but the parts, the gunk is already starting to come off as I'm spraying this on them. I'm just going to keep going until just there's just enough that these parts are more or less soaking in this solution. Hopefully I have enough here. I think I have about a third of a can of this stuff left. I think it'll be enough. I mean, you can just see how dirty this brake clean fluid's already getting. It's just black. But that's a good sign. That means that it's all coming off. Ooh, getting down there. Looks like I'll have to make another run to get some more brake cleaner and grease lightning. Just enough. That's pretty well kind of close. But I mean, man, the springs are gross. The restrictor, actually, yeah, the restrictor plates, the what do you call it? The piece that the E-clip attached to. I'm trying to blank here. But basically all these parts are just gunked up with that old oil lubricant that they used. That should be enough. I'm just trying to squeeze out the last few drops of this. I mean, can't quite get the last amount out. Oh well, that's enough. I'm also going to throw these E-clips in there too. And should probably get these restrictor plates in there. Yeah, that is just barely enough. Okay, and I'm going to find a lid for that. All right, well, I don't know where the lid is for this thing, so I'm just going to throw it in a Ziploc bag. I just want it to be a little bit more airtight so it doesn't evaporate quite as quickly, because this brake clean does evaporate fairly quick. And I want these parts to soak in it as long as possible. Okay, so that's all set to go. I'm going to put this in a safe spot, and then we can start throwing all these other parts in Metal Rescue. I'll be back. Okay, so those parts are sitting in the brake cleaner, so move this away. This is empty. And now let's get these parts in some Metal Rescue. I'm going to try to squeeze them all into one, so I don't have to use more of this Metal Rescue than necessary, because it is a little pricey. It's about 20 bucks. I mean, I guess for a gallon, that's really not that bad, but you know, if you can conserve it. So, let's see. Actually, I should probably put these guys in first. And the idea here is to use as little space as possible, as in keeping these parts as low as possible. That way I don't have to fill this thing all the way up, even though I might have to regardless. There is a lot of parts here. Okay. Let's see here. That one. And not all of these are rusty. I'm kind of looking them over because not all of these really need, like this one for instance really doesn't have much of any rust. Same with this one. And I have a few here that were actually already cleaned and looks like they're even maybe a little polished. So I don't need to throw those in there. Yeah, that one too. But the rest of these, like this one, is just absolutely terrible. Hopefully you guys can see this. Maybe I should move that light. You know what? I'm going to do that. Hang on a second. Let me move that light over to the side here. Okay, there. Hopefully that's better. Okay, so we've got a couple more here. This one's rusty too. It's like playing Tetris. I like triple check to make sure that this Metal Rescue doesn't affect plastic. And their site clearly says it doesn't harm any plastic or anything but rust. So let me just tell you, if these switches get damaged, I will be pissed. All right, so got the Metal Rescue here. Pretty straightforward. Just fill this thing up and let it sit. Now with the chrome legs, I think I let those sit for 24 hours. I checked it after, you know, like 2 hours and 4 hours and 8 hours, and I found that I had to let them sit for a substantial amount of time. So I just let them sit for, I think, a whole day, and that's probably what I'll do here, because I want those buns have to sit and clean as well, and there's other stuff I want to get done in the meantime. So it kind of works, you know, you kind of multitask. While one thing's getting cleaned, you can be working on other stuff. So, all right, here we go. All right, just enough so that everything is submerged, then I don't waste any of the stuff. And actually, you can reuse this stuff. They say that, you know, you can just reuse it until it's either not effective or it gets really dark in color. And I did that with, when I did those chrome legs, I also threw some other parts in there afterwards. And it worked pretty well. By the time I was done using this stuff, it was pretty pitch black. So Anyways, I am going to cover this up, put this in a safe spot, and then we'll move on to the next project. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is put a couple coats of paint on these black cardboard bezels for the monitors. They have kind of a flat black finish, but you know, I'm kind of a fan of semi-gloss. I did that for my Marble Madness and really liked the way it turned out. And I do have a little bit of semi-gloss still left, so I'm going to use that on these. And yeah, I mean, they're probably fine. They probably don't need to be painted, but they just look kind of dull and dirty. And so it's nice to have something that's, you know, freshly painted, especially like a darker black, especially with these bezels. It really helps the picture kind of pop because it bounces a little bit off these bezels. So yeah, I've just got some Rust-Oleum satin, or not satin, semi-gloss. So anyways, just gonna put a thin coat on these. I'll probably come back and do another coat in a bit. While I'm shaking this up, I'm also going to paint the PCB holder. I don't like the mix of colors on this thing. I mean, there's leftover spray paint, there's blue and red. Someone got a lot of paint on this and it just looks ugly. And you know, you're not really going to see it because it's inside the cabinet, but you know, if I'm going to be painting these guys, I might as well paint that as well. Okay. I've got a bunch of this clear plastic laid down. I use this a lot. Just kind of, especially within an apartment, it helps kind of protect everything else. Makes me feel a little bit safer. And I know you can't see this, but right behind the plastic is one of our larger windows. So I've got that wide open. I've got a fan. Yeah, it's not the most ideal situation for painting, but it gets the job done, and it's relatively safe. Anyways, okay, here we go. Oh, I think I'm getting low on paint here. All right, that one should be good. Let's get the other one here. I'm probably going too thick on this, but I'm not too worried. It's not like we're painting the exterior of a cabinet or anything that's really going to be visible. That's pretty good. And I'm not going to paint the reverse side because you're not going to see that at all. This is the side that's going to be facing the player. So, okay, done with those. Going to let that sit and put this off to the side here. And then I think I'm going to paint this guy here. I'll have to do, let's see, trying to think the best way to do this. It's kind of an odd shape. See how it sits down here. Well, that kind of works. And then I've also got these two wood panels that hold it in place, or pieces. And you know what, these don't really need to be painted, but since I'm doing this, I'm just gonna throw a coat on those guys as well. And I'm gonna use just this flat enamel. I can't talk today. Let's see here. Oh yeah. Okay. It's pretty good. Oops. Bumped the camera there. And let's get these two guys. Do one here and one over here. Okay. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to let these sit, obviously, for a couple hours and then come back and put another coat on. I probably won't do that on camera. I mean, it's just painting. But while these are drying, I want to work on those control panel overlays. So let's get cracking at those and stay tuned. Okay, so next I want to work on these CPOs. And like I was saying before, I've got 4 here that are all pretty decent. I only need 2, but these are the best candidates of the 6 that I've got total. There's one in here, this guy, I believe, that's almost perfect. And then these other 3 here are pretty close. So I've decided what I want to do is I'm just going to clean them all up and polish them. And once I'm done with that, I can kind of inspect them and choose the 2 best candidates for the 2 that I'm going to use. So I'm just going to start, I think, with this guy down here and work my way up. So I'm going to put these off to the side here. Move this guy up front. And the first thing I'm going to do is just scrub this down with, some simple green here. And this is a Scotch-Brite pad. These are one of their non-scratch types. It's a little bit, basically it's just gentler. It's not as abrasive. That way I don't risk putting any more scratches in this. I also have some steel wool that I'll be using. But always start out with the gentlest. You'd be surprised how far this stuff actually goes as far as cleaning. It does a pretty good job. And I'm only going in one direction. I'm going just horizontally because there is kind of a grain to this if you look closely. I'm just going to do kind of a once over on this before moving on to stronger methods of cleaning. But there's some stains on here. There's some very minor surface rust. Nothing that won't come off. All right. Almost done. I'm going to grab a cloth here to kind of wipe this down. That actually did a pretty good job. Let's check my work a little bit here. There's still some dirt up here. Looks a little more than on the surface. Some stuff down here. But otherwise, this one's actually not in too terrible shape. Let's look at the back is in pretty horrendous shape. I'll probably, actually, you know what? I'm gonna clean that now. Let's try Simple Green on this too. I have a feeling I might need to resort to something stronger like Goof Off and some steel wool, but we'll see. Actually, I'm going to grab a stronger Scotch-Brite pad. Since we're not going to see this, I don't really have to worry about putting any scratches in it. Oh yeah, this makes a big difference. I mean, this is about as abrasive as it gets, though. This is really coarse. It's almost like a wire brush. Okay, well, I just realized my memory card had filled up, so a lot of this you didn't see, but basically after I went through with the heavy-duty Scotch-Brite pad, I used some steel wool and just some more Simple Green, and all of that stuff came off the back real easily. So I'm just going to flip this over and kind of do another run through on the front with the steel wool. And the nice thing about steel wool is it's not nearly as abrasive as a Scotch-Brite pad is, but it also still has some good kick to it. Like, it'll still take off quite a bit of dirt and grime. So it's really good for stuff like this, where you don't want to damage the paint, you don't want to put more scratches in it, but you still need something more, more heavy duty, so to speak, that's got more power. So I'm just going through and kind of just cleaning up these areas, and most of this is coming off pretty nice. I don't know how well you can see this, but this is looking pretty darn good. Normally, if there were still some problem areas, I like to use some Goof Off along with the steel wool, and that's worked tremendously well, especially for the CPOs. When I was experimenting before, I used all kinds of stuff, and the Goof Off worked probably 10 times better than anything else. What I would do is, and this is another reason why it's nice to have some pretty crappy CPOs, because I can just test all kinds of stuff on this and not worry about it because I'm not going to use it. So I found that putting the Goof Off on here for, like 2 minutes, just let it sit. Then you come in with the steel wool and everything would come off just flawlessly and it wouldn't damage the paint. There's
there tends to be a lot of gunk around the buttonholes, especially over like the player 1, 2, and 3, and 4 areas, the player select buttons. And I was really worried that the goof off would take off the paint, but it didn't. So that worked really well. And speaking of that, I know that Andrew, 34K on the Claw forums, he tried using that same method in one of his videos, but he was using it on his the chrome legs, and it didn't work too well. Well, the I don't know the science behind it, but I've only known or found that it works on these CPOs. So Andrew, you got to use it on your CPOs, but at the same time, he's got, at least going by his videos, his CPOs looked fantastic. They looked very immaculate, better than the ones I've got. So he probably didn't really need to do anything to it. Anyways, this is looking really good. I don't think I'm going to have to use anything else to clean this up. The only stuff that's really remaining isn't dirt. It's just little nicks and dings. Pretty common with these. I'm just going to wipe this down. But yeah, that looks really nice. I'm not sure if this will be one of the final candidates for my control panels, but I could definitely see myself using this. I mean, it's by no means in poor shape. I think what I'm going to do now is polish this up, and then I'll move on to the others. And when I move on to the other 2 or 3 control panel overlays, I'll just speed it up because I'm not going to make you walk through this. It's just going to be the same rinse and repeat, basically. All right, so for polish, I think I'm going to use some Brasso. And this is a specific metal polish. It's for, it works for obviously brass, but others like copper, chrome, aluminum. So I think I'm going to use that. And if that doesn't do the job, I can always go back to this silver cream. But I think this should do a pretty good job. And let's see here. I'm just going to use this pad here to apply it. And let's see here. I think I will just kind of work in sections, starting on the left here. I'm sure everyone's got a different technique, but I'm just going to start over here, just kind of work it in. That would be my phone. Okay, so I don't think I'll be able to really tell how well this looks until I kind of rinse this off. Actually, I should look at the back here. Okay. Apply the metal, repolish with a soft cloth. Okay, well, looks pretty straightforward. So yeah, after I work all this in here, I'll just come through with a cloth. And I may actually rinse this off too. I know you can use, at least on chrome, you can use tin foil and Coca-Cola. That's what Andrew recommended for the chrome legs, which I went back and went over with tin foil and Coke, and it does make a remarkable difference. It's amazing how well that works. But I don't know how well that would work on something like this, something aluminum. I guess I haven't really done much research on it. But I had a whole bottle of this Brasso laying around that I hadn't used, and I thought this would be a good time to try it out. Okay. Okay, let's move on. I'm kind of going pretty generous on this stuff. I don't think you can really put too much polish on. Of course, there's probably someone watching my video screaming at me saying, yes, you can definitely put too much polish on. Okay, now I'm going to go over it with the rag here. Just kind of clean this off. I can definitely tell that this is making a difference because my light is now bouncing off this thing and hitting me directly in the eyes. And it wasn't doing that before. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, that looks pretty sharp. I'd say I'm pretty pleased with that. Yeah. Okay, well, this guy's done. Now I'm going to move on to the others. And like I said, I'm not going to make you sit through and watch this. I'm just going to speed it up. So kind of a rinse and repeat. All right, let's get started. Okay, we are done. And I think these turned out pretty darn nice, actually. I'm pretty pleased with the results. Yeah, they're not perfect. There's still the same scratches and dings, but the polish and cleaning these up really made a difference. And I have been studying these for quite a bit, trying to decide which ones I'm going to use. And I'll say that this first one up here is easily going to be my first pick. This is the cleanest one that I've got with the least amount of scratches and nicks and dings. And then I would say my second choice would probably be either this guy or this one here. This one clearly has more scuffs on it than these other ones. And I don't know how well you can see this, but let me move this over here. Some of the paint, some of the black, especially for some reason on the left side of both of the joysticks, these arrows here, the paint, the black is a little bit faded, whereas these other ones, it's not. So I'm gonna guess that I'm probably gonna go with these two and maybe this as a backup choice. The only reason that I'm choosing this one over this one is that over by the player buttons here, there's some more kind of scuffs around these areas, and there doesn't seem to be as much up here. So it's kind of a trade-off. I mean, yeah, this one's got this. I don't know how well you can see this, but this one's got a scratch right in this, inside this black outline. But overall, it's pretty darn nice. So I'm gonna guess I'll probably choose these two. This one for sure, then probably this guy as my second, with kind of this one as a backup. And again, I mean, this one's not terrible, but between the four of these three are clearly better. So anyways, enough talk about that. Let's move on with the next project.